Which wasn't surprising. Most people didn't travel all the way to the dusty mining moon Varkos 9 just to attend a government surplus auction. But Daniel Carter, former salvage engineer from Earth, had a habit of finding value where others saw junk. The holographic board flickered. Lot 47, decommissioned Galactic Cruiser, status non-functional, origin unknown, minimum bid 1 credit. A few bored alien merchants glanced at it and laughed. Probably scrap, one of them muttered. Daniel leaned back in his chair. A Galactic Cruiser for 1 credit? Even broken, the metal alone would be worth thousands. He raised his hand. 1 credit. The auctioneer, a thin insectoid being, blinked twice. Bid accepted. Any higher offers? Silence. A minute later, the hammer slammed down. Sold. Daniel had just bought a 200-meter warship for less than the price of lunch. The cruiser. The ship waited in an abandoned hangar at the edge of the port. Dust covered the hull, but Daniel could still see faint markings, strange ones, not belonging to any known galactic empire. Interesting, he murmured. He stepped inside through a partially open airlock. The interior lights flickered on automatically. That alone made him pause. Someone kept this thing powered. The corridors were massive, built for beings taller than humans. Panels along the walls glowed faintly blue. Okay, definitely not scrap. Daniel reached the bridge. The moment he stepped inside, the entire ship came alive. Lights ignited across the console. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the bridge. Commander identified. Human. Daniel froze. What? The AI continued. Welcome back, Commander. Back? Daniel whispered. The truth. The holographic star map activated. Thousands of star systems appeared, many marked hostile. The AI spoke again. The war has resumed. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. What war? The star map zoomed outward. Beyond known space, something moved. A vast red region expanding across the galaxy. The Devourers have returned. Daniel swallowed. And you think I'm your commander? The AI paused, then answered calmly. Humanity created this fleet. Daniel stared at the cruiser. But humans only joined the galactic community 100 years ago. The AI responded, Incorrect. Humanity fought the Devourers 50,000 years ago. Daniel's heart skipped. This cruiser is one of the last surviving human war arcs. The hangar shook slightly as engines deep within the ship began warming up. Across the galaxy, ancient systems awakened, hidden human warships responding to a signal. The AI turned the entire bridge toward Daniel. Commander Carter, the galaxy requires humanity again. Daniel slowly sat in the captain's chair. He had come to an auction looking for scrap metal. Instead, he had just bought the weapon that once saved the galaxy for 1 credit. Daniel Carter sat frozen in the captain's chair as the ancient cruiser hummed to life around him. Panels across the bridge glowed brighter. Systems that had been silent for tens of thousands of years were suddenly waking up. The AI spoke again. Primary systems restoring. 12%, 23%, 41%. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Okay, slow down. First things first, if you think I'm your commander, you're going to need to explain a few things. A hologram appeared in the center of the bridge. This time, it wasn't a star map. It was a human face, calm, neutral, artificial. I am Fleet Intelligence Unit Aurora, the AI said. Daniel blinked. Human AI? Correct. Designed by the Terran Defense Directorate during the First Devourer War. Daniel frowned. That war was supposed to be a myth. The hologram shifted. The star map returned, but now thousands of ancient battle markers appeared across the galaxy.
Destroyed fleets, dead civilizations, entire star systems marked extinct. Aurora's voice became colder. It was not a myth. The Devourers. The map zoomed outward to the edge of known space. A massive red storm of signals pulsed slowly. Ships, millions of them. But they weren't ships in the normal sense. They looked like living creatures, gigantic biomechanical organisms drifting through space like predators. Daniel whispered, "What the hell are those?" Aurora answered immediately, "The Devourers." The hologram showed old battle footage, ancient human warships fighting monsters the size of cities, planets burning, entire fleets swallowed by living ships. They consume civilizations and convert biological matter into more devourers. Daniel leaned back slowly. "And humanity fought these things?" Aurora replied calmly. "Humanity nearly went extinct stopping them." The hidden fleet. A new screen opened. Signals were appearing across the galaxy. Old ones, very old ones. Signal received. Human command. Signal received. War Arc 12 online. Signal received. War Arc 37 online. Daniel stared. "Wait, those are ships?" Aurora nodded. "Yes, Commander." "When did the Devourers get defeated?" "The surviving human fleet hid itself across the galaxy." "Why hide?" Aurora's voice softened slightly. "Human civilization collapsed after the war. The remaining warships were programmed to sleep until the Devourers returned." Daniel looked around the massive cruiser. "So I accidentally woke up an ancient doomsday fleet." Aurora answered calmly, "Correct." Panic in the galaxy. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien governments were starting to panic. In the capital system of the Valari Union, alarms rang across a command center. An officer shouted, "Unknown warship leaving Varkos 9. The admiral frowned. "Unknown?" "Yes, sir. No known design matches it." The screen zoomed in. The cruiser's hull markings appeared. Ancient Terran symbols. The room fell silent. One elderly historian gasped, "That's impossible." The admiral turned. "What is it?" The historian whispered in terror. "That's a human war arc." The admiral scoffed. "Humans barely have a navy." The historian shook his head slowly. "Not modern humans." He pointed at the screen. "That symbol is from a civilization that existed before most galactic species discovered fire." The officer suddenly shouted again, "Sir, more signals detected." "Where?" "Everywhere." Dots began appearing across the galaxy. Hundreds, then thousands. Ancient warships awakening. The historian whispered in terror, "The human fleet is waking up." Back on the cruiser, Aurora turned to Daniel. "Fleet synchronization complete." A massive number appeared on the screen. "Active warships, 3,482. Daniel nearly fell out of the chair. 3,000 warships? Aurora corrected him. "War arcs, Commander." "Difference?" The AI displayed a blueprint. The cruiser he was sitting in suddenly looked small, next to the real war machines, planet-sized carriers, star-killer weapons, reality distortion drives. Daniel stared. "Okay, that's terrifying." Aurora's voice echoed through the ship. "Commander Carter, the Devourers will reach the galactic core in 11 years. The star map zoomed in again. The red storm was growing, fast. Aurora looked directly at him. "Humanity must lead the defense again." Daniel leaned back and sighed. "Yesterday, I was a salvage engineer. Today, I'm apparently the commander of the most dangerous fleet in history." Aurora answered calmly, "Correct." Daniel smiled slightly. "Well, I guess I got a pretty good deal at that auction."
The galaxy had officially entered panic mode. Across hundreds of star systems, sensors were detecting the same impossible signal: ancient human warships activating. Thousands of them. Ships that no modern civilization had ever seen before. Ships that were bigger, older and far more dangerous than anything in the current galactic fleets. The Galactic Council Emergency. Inside the massive orbital station of the Galactic Council, representatives from dozens of species gathered in emergency session. The chamber buzzed with alarmed voices. A Velari admiral spoke first. 3,000 unidentified warships are activating across known space. A reptilian diplomat slammed a clawed hand on the table. Unidentified? They belong to humans. A tall, silver-skinned ambassador shook her head. Impossible! Humanity's entire navy has barely 50 cruisers. The historian from earlier stepped forward slowly. His voice was quiet, but it froze the entire room. Those ships do not belong to modern humanity. He activated a hologram. Ancient Terran symbols appeared. These are ships from the precursor human empire. The chamber fell silent. Another delegate laughed nervously. You expect us to believe humans once ruled the galaxy? The historian replied calmly. No. He zoomed the map outward. I expect you to understand that they once saved it. The signal. At that exact moment, every government in the galaxy received the same transmission. A human voice, calm, clear, broadcast across every frequency. This is Commander Daniel Carter of the Terran War Ark Aegis. Billions of beings across the galaxy listened. You are detecting ancient human warships activating across your space. The voice paused. Yes, they are ours. In the council chamber, several diplomats nearly fainted. The fleet appears. Above the mining moon Varkos 9, space began to tear open. One by one, massive ships emerged from hidden jump points. But these weren't cruisers. They were colossal. Some were kilometers long. Others looked like floating cities. One ship unfolded like a mechanical sun. Alien sensors couldn't even calculate the power output. A Velari officer whispered, "Those things could destroy planets." Another officer replied quietly, "Or protect them." Back on the Aegis. Daniel stared out the massive bridge window. Warships filled the stars around him, thousands of them. Aurora's voice echoed through the bridge. Fleet fully assembled. Daniel rubbed his forehead. This is insane. He pointed at one gigantic vessel on the tactical map. What is that? Aurora answered calmly. Designation, Titan-class Ark. Primary weapon capable of collapsing stars. Daniel blinked. Good to know. The Devourers move. Suddenly, alarms rang across the bridge. Aurora's voice became sharp. Devourer advance detected. The star map zoomed out. The red storm had changed direction. It was accelerating, fast. A horrifying number appeared on the screen. Devourer bioships, 8 million. Daniel whistled softly. Well, that's a problem. Aurora looked at him. The galaxy has never defeated them without humanity. Daniel leaned back in the chair. Then he smiled. Good thing I showed up to that auction. The First Order. Across the entire human fleet, ancient systems waited. Dormant weapons, sleeping AI, ships built for a war forgotten by time, all waiting for one command. Daniel took a deep breath, then spoke. This is Commander Carter. His voice echoed across 3,482 warships. Wake the fleet. Lights ignited across thousands of ancient ships, weapons powered up, engines roared. Set course for the Devourer front. Aurora asked one final question. Commander, shall we notify the Galactic Council? Daniel grinned. Yeah, tell them humanity's back. Outside the window, the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen began moving toward war. And somewhere in deep space, the Devourers were already coming.
The first battle began sooner than anyone expected.
Only 3 days after the human fleet assembled, long-range sensors detected the Devourers' vanguard entering the outer edge of the Karnas sector, a frontier region with dozens of small alien colonies. If the Devourers reached those systems, millions would die. The warning. On the bridge of the War Ark Aegis, alarms echoed softly. Aurora's voice spoke calmly. Devourer vanguard detected. Daniel looked up. How many? A number appeared on the screen. Devourer bioships, 120,000. Daniel sighed. Just the scouting party, huh? Aurora replied, correct. Across the galaxy, terrified governments watched the tactical feed. The Galactic Council had connected to the human fleet's battlefield cameras. They wanted to see what humanity could really do. Most of them expected the same result as every other battle against the Devourers: total destruction. The human fleet arrives. Space near the Karnas sector suddenly rippled. Then it tore open. Jump portals the size of moons appeared across the stars. One by one, human warships emerged. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The alien observers watching the feed fell silent. A Velari commander whispered, "By the stars." The human fleet stretched across space like a wall of steel. Massive carriers, Titan-class war arcs, weapon platforms older than most civilizations. Daniel leaned forward in his chair. All right, let's see what these antiques can do. The Devourers. Then the Devourers arrived. The darkness of space shifted. At first it looked like a moving asteroid field, but as the sensors zoomed in, the truth became clear. They were alive. Gigantic creatures made of bone-like armor and glowing veins of energy. Some were kilometers long, others were shaped like enormous predatory insects. Behind them came something worse, a living mass of smaller organisms surrounding the larger ships like a swarm. An alien scientist watching the feed whispered in horror, "That's not a fleet, it's a hunting pack." The first strike. The Devourers attacked first. Biological cannons fired streams of corrosive plasma. Entire storms of organic missiles flooded toward the human fleet. Alien observers braced for impact, but the human ships didn't move. Instead, a calm voice echoed across the battlefield. Aurora. Defense grid active. Thousands of human ships activated their shields at once. A glowing barrier spread across the fleet like a massive dome. The Devourer weapons slammed into it and failed. The shield didn't even flicker. In the Galactic Council chamber, someone whispered, "That shield is stronger than an entire modern fleet." Humanity fires back. Daniel leaned forward. "Okay, let's hit them." Aurora responded instantly. Fleet weapons online. Across thousands of ships, ancient cannons began charging. Mass drivers the size of skyscrapers, particle lances brighter than stars, gravity weapons capable of tearing ships apart. Daniel gave the order, "Fire," and the galaxy lit up. Beams of white energy ripped across space. Entire lines of Devourer ships exploded instantly. Titan-class war arcs fired next. One massive cannon discharged. A beam of compressed stellar energy crossed millions of kilometers. When it struck the Devourer swarm, a hole thousands of ships wide appeared in their formation. Alien commanders watching the feed were speechless. One ambassador whispered, "They're wiping them out." The Devourers react. But the Devourers weren't finished. The largest bioships suddenly opened enormous armored plates. Inside, something began forming. Energy. Huge amounts of it. Aurora's voice sharpened. "Commander, enemy superorganisms preparing starbreaker weapons." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "They can blow up stars too?" "Yes." Daniel sighed. "Of course they can."
humanity's secret weapon. Aurora turned toward him. "Shall we deploy the Titans?" Daniel looked at the tactical map. 20 enormous ships moved forward, each one larger than a city. The alien observers watching the battle suddenly realized something horrifying. Those ships had not fired yet. Daniel nodded. "Yeah, let's show them what humanity built." Aurora transmitted the command. Titan-class weapons authorized. The giant ships began charging. Energy levels rose higher, higher. Then one alien scientist screamed while watching the sensor data. "That energy reading is equal to a star's core." Daniel smiled slightly. "Good." Then he gave the order, "Fire," and the stars themselves seemed to tremble.
The Titans fired. Across the battlefield, 20 colossal human warships released their weapons at the same time. Beams of condensed stellar energy tore through space like newborn suns. For a moment, the Karnas sector looked brighter than a galaxy core. Then the beams struck. Entire clusters of Devourer bioships simply vanished, not destroyed, erased. The alien observers watching the battlefield were speechless. A Valari admiral whispered slowly, "That weapon output could crack planets." Another officer shook his head. "No." He zoomed in on the data. "It could crack stars." The Devourer fleet breaks. The Devourer vanguard began collapsing. Thousands of their living ships burned apart under the human assault. Ancient human warships moved through the battlefield like predators. Precision strikes, perfect formations, no wasted fire. Within minutes, nearly half of the Devourer fleet was gone. On the bridge of the Aegis, Daniel watched the tactical display. "Okay, this is going better than expected." Aurora replied calmly. Human war doctrine was optimized for Devourer combat. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm starting to see that." Then the alarm screamed. Something bigger. Aurora's voice suddenly changed. For the first time, the AI sounded uncertain. "Commander, new signal detected." The star map zoomed out, far beyond the battlefield. Something enormous was approaching. At first, it appeared as a dark shadow in space. Then sensors began calculating its size. Daniel leaned forward. "That can't be right." Aurora finished the calculation. Object length, 4,800 kilometers. The bridge fell silent. Even the Titan-class ships were tiny compared to that. Then the Devourer fleet suddenly changed formation. Instead of attacking, they moved aside, like soldiers making way for something important. Aurora spoke quietly. "Commander, the Devourer Queen has arrived." The Queen. The shadow moved into the light of the nearby star. Every alien watching the battle gasped. It looked like a living planet, a massive biological structure covered in armor plates, glowing veins, and thousands of massive tentacle-like structures. Millions of smaller Devourers surrounded it like a protective swarm. But the worst part? It was watching. Sensors confirmed something terrifying. The Queen was intelligent. Daniel stared at the screen. "Well, that's new." Aurora replied calmly. "Historical records confirm the Queen commanded the Devourers during the First War." Daniel frowned. "I thought humanity killed it." Aurora answered, "Humanity believed they did." The Queen attacks. Without warning, the massive creature opened a colossal structure at its center. Energy began building, but this energy was different, stronger, darker. An alien scientist monitoring the battle screamed in panic. "That energy reading is unstable. How powerful is it?" someone asked. The scientist looked pale. "If it fires, it could destroy this entire star system." On the bridge, Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Of course it can." Aurora asked calmly, "Commander, shall we deploy the Omega Protocol?" Daniel blinked. "Omega Protocol?"
A hidden file opened on the screen. Ancient Terran warning symbols covered it. Aurora explained, last resort weapon created during the final battle of the First Devourer War. Daniel read the description, then slowly leaned back. Wow, that's extremely illegal. Aurora tilted her head slightly. Correct. Suddenly, every communication system in the fleet activated. A deep, alien voice echoed across space. Not sound, but something transmitted directly into every mind. Humanity. The voice felt ancient, hungry, angry. Billions across the galaxy heard it. You return. Daniel sighed. Yep, that's us. The voice continued. You should have remained extinct. Aurora looked at Daniel. Commander. Daniel stood up from the captain's chair. He looked at the massive creature on the screen. Then he smiled. Yeah, pretty sure my ancestors heard that one before. He cracked his knuckles and sat back down. All right, Aurora, let's save the galaxy again. The human fleet began charging its weapons, and the Devourer Queen opened its massive jaws. The real war had finally begun.
The Devourer Queen moved like a living moon across the battlefield. Around it, millions of Devourer bioships gathered in a massive swarm, forming a shield of living armor. And at its center, the Queen's weapon continued charging. Energy levels rose higher and higher. Inside the bridge of the War Ark Aegis, red warning lights flashed across every console. Aurora spoke urgently. Commander, enemy weapon charge at 82%. Daniel stared at the tactical display. If that thing fired, the entire Karnas sector would disappear. Planets, colonies, stars, everything. Daniel leaned forward slowly. All right, time for the Omega Protocol. The ancient weapon. Aurora unlocked the classified system. A hidden section of the ship powered on. Deep within the Aegis, something ancient awakened. Across the entire human fleet, Titan-class ships changed formation. They began surrounding the Devourer Queen. Alien commanders watching the battle were confused. Why are the human ships forming a circle? One officer asked. Then their sensors detected it. Energy flowing from thousands of ships toward one single point, the center of the formation, the Aegis. A scientist stared at the readings in terror. That energy level, it's impossible. The truth of the Omega Protocol. Aurora explained quietly to Daniel. In the First Devourer War, humanity created one final weapon. The screen showed an ancient Terran design, a device capable of manipulating space-time itself. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, galaxy-ending technology? Aurora nodded. The Omega Protocol creates a temporary gravitational singularity. Daniel blinked. A black hole? Correct. But this one was different. It wasn't permanent. It would collapse after destroying everything in its range, including the Devourer Queen. The Queen's final attack. The Devourer Queen suddenly stopped charging its weapon. Instead, it looked directly at the human fleet. Then its voice echoed across every mind again. You would destroy this star system to stop us. Daniel shrugged. Honestly? Yeah. The Queen's voice became furious. You have not changed, humanity. Daniel smiled. Nope, still stubborn. The Queen's weapon reached full power. Aurora shouted, Commander, enemy weapon firing in 10 seconds. Humanity's last strike. The Omega Protocol finished charging. The human fleet transmitted the final authorization code. Omega Protocol activated.
A massive sphere of distorted space formed in front of the Aegis. Stars bent around it, light twisted. Reality itself seemed to warp. The Devourer Queen fired first. A beam of dark energy large enough to split a star raced toward the human fleet. Daniel slammed his hand on the console. Fire. The end of the Devourers. The Omega device activated. Space collapsed inward. A newborn black hole erupted into existence. The Devourer Queen's attack vanished instantly as the singularity swallowed it. Then the Queen itself began to fall toward the darkness. Millions of Devourer ships were dragged in with it. The massive creature screamed inside the minds of every living being nearby. Humanity will fall again. The black hole consumed it. The swarm, the fleet, everything within millions of kilometers. Then, just as Aurora predicted, the singularity collapsed. Space returned to normal, and the Devourer Queen was gone. Forever. Silence. The battlefield became quiet. The Devourer fleet scattered. Without the Queen controlling them, the remaining creatures fled into deep space. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the feed in disbelief. The impossible enemy that had destroyed civilizations for millions of years had just been defeated, again, by humans. Aftermath. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, the Velari ambassador whispered, "Humanity saved the galaxy. Again." Back on the Aegis, Daniel leaned back in the captain's chair. The fleet slowly powered down its weapons. Aurora spoke softly. Devourer threat neutralized. Daniel sighed in relief. Good. He looked out at the stars. Now can I go back to being a salvage engineer? Aurora paused, then replied, "Negative." Daniel groaned. Why? Aurora displayed a new signal on the screen, something moving at the edge of the galaxy, something enormous, and the message attached to it was simple. Unknown Devourer signal detected. Aurora looked at him. Commander Carter, the war may not be over. Daniel stared at the screen. Then he sighed. Next time, I'm not going to any auctions.